she screamed from across the fence, "You can't build here. This is HOA property." I didn't even look up from my hammer. I just smiled. Because I knew something she didn't. 3 months earlier, a construction company had started building homes on the empty field behind my cabin. Trucks, workers, and cement mixers rolled in like an army. When I asked what was going on, the supervisor waved a clipboard and said, "New HOA community, sir. You might want to move your trailer soon." My trailer. I'd lived on this land for 15 years. Paid taxes on it every single year. My father bought it in 1998, a clean deed, 40 acres, right in my name now. But somehow, these people thought it belonged to them. So I didn't argue. I just said, "All right. Do what you gotta do." By the end of spring, they'd built 96 beautiful homes, white fences, trimmed lawns, street lights. And every week, I watched their fancy HOA board hold meetings, talk about their neighborhood rules, and complain about that weird guy in the trailer. Then came Karen, their self-appointed HOA president. She marched up to my front porch one morning, heels clicking like a metronome. "You're trespassing," she said, holding a fake eviction notice. "We voted, and this land belongs to the HOA now." I looked at her, calm as ever, and said, "That's so?" She crossed her arms. "We'll get the county to remove you. You can't just live on our property." I just nodded slowly, hiding the grin that wanted to escape. Because she had no idea what was coming. When they finished construction and started selling the houses, I waited. Every single home, all 96, built on my land. And once the last sold sign went up, I pulled out the original deed. The courtroom was packed. HOA members sat together like a wall of smug faces, whispering and laughing. Karen stood in front, wearing a bright red suit, the kind people wear when they think they've already won. She looked at me like I was trash. "Your Honor," she said, voice dripping with fake confidence, "this man is illegally occupying HOA land. We request immediate removal." The judge adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Walker," he said, "do you have proof of ownership?" I reached into my old leather bag, the same one my dad used to carry, and pulled out a thick folder. I could feel every eye in that room on me. Karen smirked, probably thinking I was about to embarrass myself. But when I laid that folder on the judge's desk, her smile froze. "This," I said, sliding the paper forward, "is the original deed. Dated 1998. Registered under my father's name. And here," I pulled out a second document, "is the updated record, transferred to me, 5 years ago." The judge leaned closer. His brows lifted. "So, these 96 homes. Built on my land," I said quietly. Karen's face turned pale. She stuttered, that can't be right. The developer bought this land from." The judge cut her off. "Apparently, from someone who didn't own it." The room went silent. You could hear the sound of her heels tapping nervously on the floor. I didn't gloat. I didn't even smile. I just stood there, watching as the truth spread across their faces. Then the judge looked at me again. "Mr. Walker," he said, "legally, this entire development belongs to you." Karen whispered under her breath, No, that's not possible." But it was. And that was only the beginning of her nightmare. The news spread through the HOA like wildfire. People who once ignored me were now knocking on my door, begging for answers. Some offered to buy their land back. Others cursed me, calling me a thief. But I hadn't stolen a thing, I just waited for the truth to reveal itself. Karen, though, she wasn't done. Not by a long shot. 2 days later, I woke up to the sound of engines. Trucks, county vehicles, even a couple of local cops parked outside my gate. Karen stood in the middle of them, waving papers and yelling, "Seize the property. This man is a fraud." I stepped out onto the porch, coffee in hand. "Morning," I said calmly. One of the officers walked up, eyes uncertain. "Sir, the HOA claims you forged the deed." I smiled. Then maybe they should check with the county registrar. Page 42, Record ID 5091. He looked at me, then at Karen, who was suddenly less confident. You think you can outsmart us?" she hissed. I walked closer, keeping my voice low. "No, ma'am. I don't think I can. I already did." The officer's radio crackled. "Copy that, record confirmed. The deed's valid." Karen's voice cracked. "That can't be." But it was. Again. The officers turned to her, frowning now. "Ma'am, did you file this complaint?" Her lips trembled. "Why yes, but..." "You do realize filing a false report against a property owner is a criminal offense?" Karen stepped back, color draining from her face. The other HOA board members behind her slowly scattered, pretending they didn't know her. I didn't say another word. I just sipped my coffee and watched her world crumble, one lie at a time. But what I didn't know then was that Karen wasn't going down quietly. She had one more move, and it was going to get ugly. That night, I heard footsteps near my fence line. Soft at first, then quicker, sharper, like someone running from shadow to shadow. I turned off the lights and watched from the window. There she was, Karen. Flashlight in one hand, phone in the other, sneaking around my property like a thief. I grabbed my phone, hit record, and just waited. She was whispering to someone on the phone. "Yeah. I'm behind his trailer. I'll take pictures and send them to you. We'll prove he's storing illegal materials here. That'll get him kicked out for sure." I couldn't believe it. Even after losing in court, she was trying to frame me. I stepped outside slowly, flashlight off, letting the moonlight do the work. "When I was close enough," I said, "looking for something, Karen?" She gasped and spun around, dropping her phone. "Why you can't sneak up on people like that?" "You mean like you're sneaking on my property?" I said, voice calm but sharp. "You really don't know when to stop, do you?" She crossed her arms, trying to sound brave. "This land doesn't belong to you." "Not really. You just tricked everyone." I held up my phone, still recording. "Then explain to the cops why you're trespassing, again." Her fake confidence cracked. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I'd love to." I dialed the sheriff's office right in front of her. Within 10 minutes, flashing red and blue lights filled the field. The same cops who came last time were now escorting her into the back of the car. One of them looked at me and shook his head. "She's been making calls all week. False claims, fake reports. Guess she finally crossed the line." As they drove off, Karen's eyes met mine through the window. Cold. Angry. But not defeated. Not yet. Because later that night, my phone buzzed with a new email. And the subject line made my blood run cold. "Notice of foreclosure, HOA legal action pending." I stared at that email for a long minute, trying to process what I was seeing. Foreclosure? On my land? That didn't even make sense. But as I scrolled, I realized what she'd done. Karen had filed a fake lien against my property through a shell company the HOA used for maintenance contracts. She was trying to legally steal my land on paper. I could almost hear her smug voice in my head, "You can't fight the system." Well, she didn't know who she was dealing with. I wasn't some clueless landowner. Before my dad passed, he'd worked in real estate law for 20 years. I'd helped him with every case, learned every trick in the book, and kept every document he ever saved. Including one that was about to destroy her entire plan. The next morning, I drove straight to the county courthouse. I didn't talk to the clerk, I went right to the records office, pulled out the paperwork, and requested a property ownership audit. The clerk looked confused. "Sir, we only do this when fraud is suspected." I leaned closer. "Oh, fraud's not suspected. It's confirmed." That same day, a county investigator showed up at the HOA office. By evening, Karen's name was all over the local news, HOA president under investigation for real estate fraud. But Karen wasn't stupid. She knew it was over. So she did what cowards always do, she played the victim. She went on social media, crying on camera, saying I'd harassed her and stolen from the community. Thousands of locals saw it. Some believed her. Others didn't. But all I cared about was one thing, justice. The next morning, as I prepared to head back to court, I got a call from someone unexpected, the construction company's former site manager. He sounded nervous. "Mr. Walker, there's something you need to see. Something Karen made us hide when this project started." I didn't know it yet. But what he had was about to expose Karen in a way that would end her career, and her freedom, forever. When I arrived at the small diner he asked to meet in, the guy looked like he hadn't slept in days. Hard hat still in his truck, hands trembling around a cup of coffee. He slid a brown envelope across the table toward me. "I kept copies," he said quietly. Didn't trust her. I opened it, and there it was. Signed permits, blueprints, and emails between Karen and a fake land broker. She'd forged signatures, redirected construction funds, and lied to the developers to start building on my land in the first place. She told us she had county approval, he continued, his voice shaking. Said the land transfer was already cleared. We didn't question it. But when the checks started bouncing, I knew something was off. Every single document was there. The evidence I needed to bury her lies once and for all. I looked up. "You realize, this proves criminal conspiracy, right?" He nodded. "I just want out. I can't be part of this anymore." I thanked him, paid for his coffee, and walked out with that envelope feeling heavier than lead. By the time I got to the courthouse the next day, my lawyer had already reviewed everything. When Karen walked in, she looked confident again, makeup perfect, hair done, that same arrogant smirk glued to her face. She didn't know I had the envelope. The judge called the session to order. "Mr. Walker, do you have new evidence?" I stood, holding the documents. "Yes, Your Honor. Evidence of forgery, wire fraud, and property theft, all signed by Mrs. Karen Whitfield." The room went dead silent. Karen froze, her smirk evaporating. The judge started reading the papers, his expression shifting from confusion to pure disbelief. Then, finally, he looked at her. "Mrs. Whitfield, you are under investigation for multiple felonies." Karen's face turned white. You can't do this," she shouted. "I built that community." The judge's gavel slammed. "You built it, on stolen land." As officers moved toward her, she looked at me one last time, eyes wide, desperate. "You ruined everything." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The truth had already done that. But even after she was taken away in cuffs, I knew the story wasn't over. Because when the dust settled, those 96 homes were still standing. And every single one of them legally belonged to me now. The news broke nationwide within hours. Local HOA president arrested for multi-million-dollar fraud. Reporters camped outside my property gate, drones hovered over the neighborhood, and every homeowner in that 96-house subdivision panicked. They started calling, begging, offering deals. "Please, sir, don't take our home. We didn't know." I didn't blame them. They were victims too, fooled by the same woman who tried to destroy me. But the irony? They were living on land their so-called HOA never owned. My land. I met with my lawyer that week. He laid out the options. Legally, you own every inch of that property. You could sell it all, evict them, or renegotiate terms. I looked out the window at the rows of perfect houses, lawns trimmed, kids playing, families just trying to live normal lives. I remembered how my dad always said, land isn't just dirt, it's responsibility. "I'm not taking their homes," I said quietly. "But I'm taking the HOA." And that's exactly what I did. I restructured everything, dissolved the old HOA, created a new one, and made sure it was fair. No more fake fines, no bullying, no power games. Every homeowner got proper deeds, real contracts, and the peace they thought they were buying the first time. The people who once glared at me across fences now waved every morning. Some even came over to thank me. But Karen, she wasn't done making headlines. A few weeks later, a friend from the sheriff's office called. "You might want to turn on the news." On screen, I saw her, Karen, in court again, crying, trying to plead for leniency. She blamed bad advice, paperwork confusion, even me. But it didn't work. The judge sentenced her to 3 years for fraud and impersonation. And when the gavel hit, I finally exhaled. For the first time in months, I felt peace. No yelling. No fake notices. No fear. Just quiet. But something inside me still burned, not anger, not revenge. Just a deep reminder of how far people will go to control what they don't own, and how powerful the truth can be when you stand your ground. A few months passed, and the neighborhood had changed completely. No more HOA patrols. No more threats on people's mailboxes. Just real families living in peace. The sun hit the rooftops differently now, softer, calmer, like the land itself was finally breathing again. Every evening, I'd sit on my porch with a cup of coffee, watching kids ride their bikes down the new street they named after my father, Walker Lane. It still made me smile. The same land that once felt like a battleground was now a home for nearly 100 families. One afternoon, an older couple stopped by. They'd just moved into one of the last finished homes. The man shook my hand firmly and said, "Sir, I just want to thank you. We saw what that woman did to you. You didn't just fight for yourself, you saved this whole neighborhood." I nodded, a little caught off guard. "Wasn't just about me," I said. "It was about what's right." He smiled. "You stood up when everyone else was scared. That's rare these days." Later that night, I walked out to the edge of my property, right where Karen once screamed, "This isn't your land." The same spot where the first truck had rolled in, where it all began. I looked around, the lights, the homes, the peace, and whispered, "You were wrong, Karen. This land always knew who it belonged to." And just as I turned to head back inside, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number, but the message froze me where I stood. "Hope you're enjoying your little victory, Mr. Walker. You forgot, I wasn't the only one involved." The wind shifted. My heart dropped. Because that message wasn't from Karen. It was from someone who still had power, and wasn't done with me yet. The next morning, I found a black SUV parked near the gate, tinted windows, no plates. It sat there for hours, engine off, like a shadow that refused to move. When I finally walked toward it, it rolled away slowly, tires crunching gravel, leaving behind a small envelope tucked under my fence post. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No name, no logo, just a message printed in bold letters. "You've cost powerful people a lot of money. Walk away, or we'll take what matters most." I stood there, reading it again and again. My hands tightened around the paper until it crumpled. This wasn't just Karen's mess anymore. Someone bigger, the people who'd funded that whole project, were coming for me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made my heart race. I installed extra cameras, checked the locks twice, and sat by the window, watching the dark road. Around midnight, headlights appeared again, but this time, they didn't stop. They slowed just enough for me to catch a glimpse, 2 men in suits. Watching. I called the sheriff first thing the next morning. He sent a deputy to patrol the area, but by the time they arrived, the SUV was gone. "Probably just trying to scare you," the deputy said. "Yeah," I muttered. "That's what worries me, they're not trying hard enough." Later that week, I met with my lawyer. He looked grim. "Walker, those investors Karen worked with? They weren't local. Some of them have deep ties, developers, real estate syndicates. If they lose this land, they lose millions. So what are they planning?" I asked. He hesitated. "If I had to guess? They'll try to bury you in lawsuits. Or worse, buy someone off to make your life hell." I leaned back, exhaling slowly. Then I guess it's time to stop playing defense. He looked at me, confused. What do you mean? I opened my bag, pulled out a small flash drive, and slid it across his desk. This, I said, is every document, every email, every transaction tied to their project. My father backed up everything when they first tried to buy this land 15 years ago. His eyes widened. You have proof? I nodded. Enough to burn their empire to the ground. Because if they wanted a war, I was done hiding. A week later, I stood in the same courtroom where it all began, only this time, it wasn't Karen on trial. It was the developers, the investors, and every name tied to the forged construction deal. Their lawyers looked confident at first, until the judge asked me to present my evidence. I plugged in the flash drive. One by one, the files appeared on the big screen: bank transfers, fake land permits, offshore accounts. And then, the emails. Messages between Karen and a man named Richard Cole, the developer who'd funded the entire HOA project. Make sure he never finds the original deed. We'll buy off the clerk if we have to. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scribbled, cameras flashed, and Richard's lawyer tried to object, but it was too late. The judge leaned forward, voice cold as steel. Mr. Cole, you and your associates are under federal investigation for fraud, bribery, and conspiracy. Richard's face went pale. This man's bluffing, he shouted. I just smiled and said quietly, funny thing about truth, it doesn't bluff. That was the final blow. Within days, the entire operation collapsed. The investors were arrested, the company went bankrupt, and every homeowner in that subdivision was given full legal protection. As for me, I didn't sell the land. I built something new on it. A veterans community garden, dedicated to my father and every man and woman who fought for the right to call a piece of this country home. One evening, a news reporter asked me, Mr. Walker, why didn't you just take the money and walk away? I looked into the camera and said, because I didn't fight for this land just to sell it. I fought for it to mean something. The sun set behind the houses, my land, our neighborhood, glowing gold across the fields that once held nothing but dust and lies. And as the American flag swayed above the gate, I whispered to myself, Dad, we finally got it back. Every neighborhood has its secrets, and every Karen leaves her mark. If you love true HOA stories like this, make sure to watch more on our channel, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life neighborhood drama. Thank you.